Welcome to Assembly Summer 2009 seminars, and next we will have ALT seminar.
Hello, my name is Christopher Lawson, known as Cyborg. Also, I'm the founder of the Alternative Party, and our theme just this year is to do with the relationship between humans and machines, and the interface between humans and machines, and which is kind of like cyberpunk related as well. So that's why we're doing this kind of seminar this year. And also, I'd just like to say that absolutely do come to the Alternative Party. It starts on the 23rd of October and continues to the 25th. And I can guarantee that it's one of the best events that you're ever going to be visiting if you do come. So, thank you.
Thank you. And now we will let Maria Candia to continue from here. Let's welcome Maria.
Hello. My name is Maria Candia, and I also want to welcome you to this ALT seminar. Alternative Party is offering this humanistic option on this seminar because the inspiration for the event is going to be cyberpunk, as Cyborg just was telling you about. And I will be there talking about the same subject as here, cyberfeminism, which is a part of cyberculture that maybe at least not all male cyberculture fans know so much about. And how I came across this thing is that I myself have been studying literature and gender studies, and a woman I know that is speaking here on this conference has also been writing science fiction books herself with a pseudonym. And when I was writing my thesis, which also had to do with my own books, I came across more and more Donna Haraway, which I'm going to now tell you about. I will put now on this picture show here, and you don't have to pay special attention to it. It is a series of pictures that I got from Google, from the first pages when I put the image search some keywords that I was going to speak about, like cyberpunk, cyber technology, women, Donna Haraway, cyberfeminism. So they are kind of a brainwash, and then there's also some parts of the cyber manifesto, what I'm going to tell you about as well, and also pictures of Donna Haraway, who has written it. The Cyborg Manifesto is not a cyberpunk novel. It is not novel literature. Excuse me, I have to first tell you that I wrote this in Finnish, so excuse my staggering if I have to find words, so I'll be asking you for them. But hello to everybody in the internet who's not watching this and can't understand in Finnish. Okay. Cyborg Manifesto, which I came to talk about, is a text, but it's not a cyberpunk novel. It's a text about cyberpunk and about other things as well. It is actually a part, or the most famous chapter in a bigger text called Simians, Cyborgs and Women that Donna Haraway has written. And it tells about a phenomena and a very interesting thought that has come so close to a lot of especially women in the modern times that, for example, I am here now telling to you about it because it has had a lot of meaning to myself. This Donna Haraway, my guru, she was born 1944. She's from USA and a researcher in technology and a theoretic, feminist theoretic. And she's a doctor in biology from Yale University. And nowadays she's teaching the history of consciousness in the University of Santa Cruz, and feministic theory and technosciences at the European graduate school in Switzerland. Even if the Cyborg Manifesto, this chapter in the Simian's Cyborgs and Women book, is not a cyberpunk novel literature, it tells about cyberpunk literature in a way that it somehow mirrors it against the society from where these books have been written. She's kind of trying to imagine why this kind of half human machine, half animals exist in our imagination. In other words, she's trying to access this kind of modern mythology, like the mythical animals that we now have in our Aboriginal culture in the 21st century or 20th century, and not what kind of mythical animals some cultures somewhere else has been having. Because this is a humanist theory, you have to remember that I am now also just interpreting it. There is no one right way of explaining what she's thinking and what cyber feminism is. Otherwise also the whole body of the thought repels that there would be one right way of telling about it. So I hope that you understand my vision of what she's talking about. And sometimes read the Cyborg Manifesto yourself. I would like to show you how she's writing and what she means by cyborg, by starting with reading you a sequel where she's explaining what is the cyborg, because this is not a question of this is more of an idea, philosophical idea of a cyborg that she's talking about. Now listen. You will see the text appear before you at some point here behind me, or maybe it already passed, but I will now read it to you. The cyborg is a creature in a post-gender world. It has no truck with bisexuality, pre-Oedipal symbiosis, unalienated labor, or other seductions to organic wholeness through a final appropriation of all the powers in the parts into a higher unity. In a sense, the cyborg has no origin story in the Western sense. A final irony, since the cyborg is also the awful apocalyptic telos of the West's escalating dominations of abstract individuation, an ultimate self untied at last from all dependency, a man in space. As you see, she's not speaking from a technician's point of view. She's speaking about what is a consciousness of a cyborg, and that you can take symbolically a consciousness of a cyborg to yourself. She has been thinking about cyborg as some kind of an abstract myth of an individual that can change and have many sides. It's not got into be just one thing, like a woman or a man or like engineer. From this, she starts building up this philosophical idea that has to do with modern feminism a lot, and what you are now hearing about. But before I go on, I'd like to ask you here in the audience, who really knows what gender studies is? How many of you have been studying gender studies? That's great. So I don't have to go so much into this, but this Cyborg Manifesto, or the Simian's Cyborgs and Women book is one book that you get to read when you read, for example, gender studies in the humanistic faculties. So well, this is one of the feministic theory and theories like masterpieces from the 80s, and also a cornerstone in the cyber culture. And cyber feminism, what it kind of drew out, is about what you learn to think during this few minutes that I hope we still have left. Haraway, when she's writing, as you notice, the text was quite. She's playing with language and playing with words and things. She thinks that irony and humor are a very, very important thing in researching social phenomena. So you shouldn't. I don't think she thinks of her manifesto as a kind of a biblical thing that everybody should follow. It has been. Talk in a discussion, a bigger discussion, and there's probably a lot of things that are not correct also in her thoughts. But that's the thing with playing with words and playing with thoughts and saying provocative things, that you get a broader vision in your head. When it came out in the 80s, it was considered very difficult, or when I learned to know it 10 years ago at university, I also, was presented as something very difficult and hard to understand. But I have noticed now when I was reading it that it was somehow easier to understand her thoughts. And I think that this shows that somehow she has been also right, because they become this weird cyborg myth of consciousness, what you like subjectivity that you want to take. It is more familiar to us all the time in this time of the integrated circuit, as she says it. And it would be interesting to if we have time after this, especially to the ones who hear it for the first time, to hear if you understood her thoughts, because that would show that it's quite easy. It somehow would be a test for me to see how is this really so difficult as it has been held for any modern man. Well, one reason why Donna Haraway and the Cyborg Manifesto is interesting, or she as a theoretical here in Assembly and this kind of surrounding, is that she has been thinking about the front line of information sciences, because she's also international sciences herself, a professional. So she is checking out that thing. But not only as an engineer, as how in a big scale this whole thing with the new time we're living in, how it infects our culture and our world of the view of the world. Also, she has been, of course, thinking about like information technology, how it inflicts the third world women, for example, who are in labor, putting together these chips and things that we use. And because she's a social feminist, this is very important to her to try to find. It's not that everybody, all the feminists would follow Donna Haraway, but especially lesbian feminists or feminists like myself, who doesn't see that the woman is equal to this imagine of woman that is this mother, this certain kind of woman that for example, Manifesto magazine is addressed to. That's not like equal to what is being a woman. Everybody is born as a human, and a woman is not the first thing I am. And this is a very difficult thing, because this thing of gender, who you are, what sexuality you have, is very, very, very close to everybody. And that's why it's always difficult to speak about these things with anybody who thinks different than you. That's why Donna Haraway uses a lot of humor and provocativity. I think it's very interesting, especially in human sciences, because if you are able to laugh at your own own culture and your own beliefs, what you had, then you can maybe see things more clearly and be able to criticize your own views as well. And that's a lot what she's talking about in the Cyborg Manifest, with funny language too. When she was writing this Cyborg Manifest, William Gibson was most active. Of course, in the cyber culture, the cyberpunk was something emergent in the culture she was living in, and she's a science fiction fan otherwise too. Like I said, I learned to know her when I was writing my thesis about science fiction. She has been using a lot examples of Octavia Estelle Butler, who's like a black science fiction writer from United States, one of the first published black woman who was writing science fiction. And she has crazy stories that Haraway loves. The thing that Haraway is trying to build is a thought about a new kind of feminism thinking that doesn't think of technology and machines as something alien to woman, or like something masculine that some feminists at her time, when she was writing this, there was maybe more this essential thing that women guard their right to be women in the traditional sense, and everything that has to do with technology and these machines and so is thought of somehow being masculine. But as we are trying to avoid all kind of lines between man and woman and nature and technology inside cyber feminism, she of course has a very different view on technology. In the cyborg, what she calls a cyborg is this myth. It in its essence is the desire to wipe away these lines between things, between man and machine and woman and man and nature and culture. So what's the point? And points out why all the lines are not always that relevant as what they seem like from our earlier culture perspective. Human can live in any kind of can get used to any kind of silly ideas and create weird cultures with weird habits. It's not that there is a right kind of human or some kind of a last human or last culture which is the best. We can become anything culturally. She's, as you remember, talking about this cyborg as from a more abstract view than thinking about the what you think like the technical cyborg. She says that the mix between an organism and machine is also a political product and a fiction that is changing the world. And she doesn't think that it's only in books that the cyborgs exist already. For example, now there are more cyborgs than there were in 80s really living, but she thinks that when this idea of a cyborg, a half machine things have emerged in stories, then they somehow already exist in our culture and are part of our stories and how we build our own subjectivity. She's comparing this myth of the new myth of a cyborg with a myth of a female experience, which is also a political fiction. This idea about the common female suffering that all women share because we are oppressed by men, that there is, which is also one truth, which is created to help feminism, or has created itself from it, has emerged. But it's also just a myth, like all cultures. Everything that you can say is like a hat that you can put in your head, and you can break yourself free from oppression by choosing a consciousness that opens your own eyes. So to get free, it's a question of choosing the right kind of consciousness for oneself. I think personally that is and what I have myself taken from the Cyborg Manifest to myself, my personal life, that I can choose to be a woman in a different way, and there's nothing wrong with me, or I can choose to be a person without being a woman, for example. As a medicine, Donna says that the line between science fiction and the social reality is an optical illusion, and that what is in the science fiction books or stories and everything, that's also, even if it's still just technical imagination, it still is a part of our worldview, and the existence of this, that people can change themselves, or that there is no, the human is not the natural thing it was before. This is also in medicine. Machines and humans come closer nowadays than humans come closer in sex, she writes. The line between natural incorporality, or natural corporality, and before unnatural corporality has blurred itself. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. I'm going to now read again an extract from the manifest, so you hear what she says about this. By the late 20th century, our time, a mythic time, we are all chimeras, theorized and fabricated hybrids of machine and organism. In short, we are all cyborgs. This cyborg is our ontology. It gives us material reality, the two joint centers structuring any possibility of politics have been the tradition of racist, male-dominant capitalism, the tradition of progress, the tradition of the appropriation of nature as resource for the productions of culture, the tradition of reproduction of the self from the reflections of the other. In this tradition, the relation between organism and machine has been a border war. The stakes and imagination, the stakes of the border war have been the territories of production, reproduction, and imagination. This chapter is an argument for pleasure. I'm the Cyborg Manifest. This chapter is an argument for pleasure in the confusion of boundaries and for responsibility in their construction. It is also an effort to contribute to social feminist culture and theory in a postmodernist, non-naturalist mode, and in the utopian tradition of imagining a world without gender, which is perhaps a world without genesis, but maybe also a world without end. In the whole content of the Cyborg Manifesto, she is then speaking about her own time's feminist discussion, and I will not go so much into that because this world is changing all the time. But one thing that she is like a socialist feminist who is not for essentiality, as we were talking about earlier, that she's especially loved by women who don't think that like the woman is doomed to be what everybody thinks a woman is. She says herself especially away from essentiality, because she thinks that if you start guarding women as a one homogenic group, then you forget about the ones who are not. For example, the ones who are lesbians, or the ones who are not like this in the normal situation of a woman. And that's something that feminists after that time have already more and more taken in hand to, that there are so many different women, there's so many different experiences about being a woman, as many as there are different experiences about being a man. In other words, she says that there's some kind of a magic light that differs man from a woman. At least it's not a shame if you don't find that light in yourself. And I don't mean that by now, and neither does she so much about genitals and these kind of visible things of the body. It means what is in here in the head. The idea was to find with the Cyborg Manifesto a common language for feminism, and by that using irony, because irony helps see the truth more clearly. At least more clearly than when you take things too seriously and just see your own culture and what God said when you learned the Bible and never believe anything else. In her manifest, she's also talking about the labor, how labor is in the world of the new in the new techno age, and it's a very, and I think especially, I didn't hear the last session here, but I think especially ones that saw that could also find this sequence of the manifesto interesting, because she's analyzing how, okay, in the 80s, how this division of labor has changed from before, when the information technology and a lot of new factories manufacturing these kind of things have emerged in the third world countries and so. Now I can read a part from that to you so you understand better. The new economic and technological arrangements are also related to the collapsing welfare state and the ensuing intensification of demands on women to sustain daily life for themselves as well as for men, children and old people. The causes of various women-headed households are function of race, class or sexuality, but their increasing generality is a ground for coalitions of women on many issues. That women regularly sustain daily life partly as a function of their enforced status as mothers is hardly new. The kind of integration with the overall capitalist and progressively war-based economy is new. The particular pressure, for example, is, on US black women who have achieved an escape from barely paid domestic service and who now hold clerical and similar jobs in large numbers, has large implications for condued enforced black poverty with employment. Teenage women in industrialization areas of the third world increasingly find themselves the sole or major source of cash wage for their families, while access to land is ever more problematic. These developments must have major consequences in the psychodynamics and politics of gender and race. So she's speaking about how the social structures have changed and mechanisms of the society. And now I don't go more to that either, but I recommend you to read that if you once read the Cyborg Manifesto. In the end of the Cyborg Manifesto, Haraway goes back to literature, cyberpunk literature and science fiction literature. And there she sees that this dream of the liberating dream of the cyborg as a tool somehow already exists. She understands her cyborg as a blasphemy to the myths that have been before the time of the integrated circus. And this kind of myths that it's a blasphemy at, and now a pedagogic blasphemy, because remember that with irony you open your eyes, you see the points, and so. These myths are, for example, this idea that there is a unity between people. Everybody's working in families, and the old relation to nature. And since psychoanalysis and Marxism have kind of come to criticize things of the or have emerged on this old biblic Western world, they're still somehow rooted in it, so that when she's speaking about psychoanalysis and Marxism, she's also making Cyborg a blasphemy to them, to see better that how these ideas have also been wrong. And one thing about this whole Cyborg manifest, that it in itself is a Cyborgian text. It's a Cyborg writing. And Cyborg writing is a kind of text that somehow is grounded on these new starting points and the future, and this new kind of views on survival that she's explaining. Not this kind of once upon a time stories where the woman and the family was a continuation of a man, or when you fight for as a cyber feminist, for example, and you can fight with a very cyborgian tool that you have because, as I said, she doesn't draw lines between, for example.
There's a possibility to remove genders, right?
Yeah.
Basically. But I still find it actually interesting that even in this presentation, all the images of cyborgs are either ultra-feminine or ultra-masculine. And I'm just wondering that even though technology might offer the possibility to do that, if in fact it might be that that's just a reflection that people don't actually want to get rid of that kind of like sort of.
Well, I would think more that in a possession where you have that these symbols of something ultra-masculine or ultra-feminine, they stop being ultra-masculine and ultra-feminine with the new glasses. They are image, and you can play with masculinity and femininity, and still that even if she's rooting this in that you can really remove genders, I think it is more a question of change in consciousness, what the point is. And then I don't think, for example, when I'm looking at this, I don't see, of course I see some of them are, of the pictures, you see a very beautiful woman who has something showing here. Okay, that's a picture of a female cyborg of a certain kind. And this, I don't think, for example, the Borg Queen is either feminine or masculine, or this, in a way. Somehow the machine or the nature has no gender, so to say.
Okay, thank you, Maria, and I think we are running out of time, and we are going to continue with seminars after 10 more minutes. Thank you.